today, and the world was a restless place. It could have been that way for me.
Hello and welcome to WGTC Radio, Season 2!
Yeah, Season 2!
The second year of the entertainment podcast from official website We Got This Covered.
Yep, that it is, Jonathan. That it is.
Did I say all that right?
Sure.
Okay. Second season, I hope I'm doing this right.
You've been doing this long enough.
I'm Jonathan Lack.
And I'm Sean Chapman.
And we are here for another crazy year of talking about stuff.
Yeah, shit, dude, it's 2013 now.
It is. We've made it. We got through 2012. We all lived.
Yeah.
Everything's good.
Were you a little bit disappointed that the apocalypse didn't happen? I was.
There was kind of, that sort of lull after it happened where it's just like, oh, we really do have to just go on living.
It's like, the thing I loved about that whole apocalypse thing, by the way, was that it felt like people were so fucking burned out on it. Like, it was such a huge thing in, 2008 to, 2010. It was like, everyone would make that joke, the world's going to end in 2012. It fucking actually is like, the day is coming. Nobody gave a shit. It was only after the fact that people started making jokes about it. They're like, oh yeah, that was a thing. My God. Oh yeah.
No, it's interesting because I thought about it a little bit because the apocalypse, that's one of the few fictional scenarios that really scares me is that idea of a meteor coming or something that the apocalyptic event coming and we're counting it down and we know we're all going to die. That scares the fucking shit out of me. I don't know why.
I don't know. That sounds super fucking relaxing, man. It's just at least I have got this deadline now. It's like, okay, it's like I've got shit figured out. It's like you could still die just at any fucking moment, but it's like you have this certain period of time that's I'm going to shoot for living to that.
Okay.
It's that's relaxing. I like that. It's it kind of takes the whole survival thing out of your hands for a little bit.
Should we switch our topic to philosophy for today?
I don't know. We tried to do that Plato thing one time. I don't know how that panned over. So.
Oh well.
I don't know. I don't even know if we have a topic for today.
Our topic is sort of catching up on what we missed because we were off for a week. We took the last week of 2012 off. We are back for the first week of 2013. And at least this week, we have a lot of stuff to talk about. The next couple months, there's not much happening. But we'll figure stuff out.
Yeah. Well, if, worst comes to worst, I'll just do a Persona podcast. I'll just talk about that for weeks until something more relevant comes up.
I was going to say we just go back and watch, bad William Hartnell Doctor Who's, the Fighters one.
Sure. Yeah, the Gunfighters, sure.
And just talk about that.
Sure. I will... Okay, well, I won't do the Gunfighters.
Okay.
I will do other William Hartnell stories.
We will pick apart the caveman politics in the pilot of Doctor Who.
What a great fucking episode.
It's great!
Yeah.
If you haven't seen, the first Doctor Who with William Hartnell, it's a lot of fun. Caveman politics. It's surprisingly fascinating.
It's a weird choice to do an episode that's basically about... You have this, caveman tribe, and it's, the, old political force versus, this new uprising revolutionary force within this caveman tribe, and it's analyzing that political, diagram.
They need to do the sequel. Stephen Moffat, get on that.
Yeah, find out, what happened to, Ugbug, who took over, or whatever his name was.
All right. Well, anyway, today, speaking of Doctor Who, our main topic, we'll save it for the end in case you didn't see it yet or you don't watch Doctor Who. The Doctor Who Christmas special aired on Christmas. We talk about every new episode of Doctor Who on this podcast, so we will talk about that in great detail. The Snowmen. We both thought it was pretty good, although it had some pun-related issues.
Yeah.
To put it lightly.
Doctor Who!
All right.
So I'm kind of, a part of me is happy that they did that so I can just yell Doctor Who 1,000 times on this podcast again, nice. I did in days past.
Good. A Dalek didn't do it, though, so you can't do the Dalek Doctor Who.
someday.
You can throw that in if you want.
Someday.
Yeah, we'll get back to that. In any case. So we will talk about that. First, we're just going to sort of catch up on other things that happened over the holidays, things we saw, things we did. For the most part, I did not do much these last 2 weeks. I was out of town for a while with my family, seeing other family, and, I guess I could tell podcast listeners the story of the really shitty dog movie I had to watch with, my 10-year-old cousin while I was on vacation.
It wasn't Air Bud?
It was not. It was called Hachi. And Hachi means 8 in Japanese.
Yeah.
And
is this a Japanese, dog movie?
No.
Oh.
I guess it's a remake of a Japanese movie, but it's and I don't know what the Japanese movie is like. But anyway, so let me set the stage. So like we were staying at my uncle's house for Christmas we went to Iowa. That's where my family's from. So we're in Iowa at my uncle's house, and all of like my cousins, his like kids come over and their kids, and so I guess this is my second cousin who chose to watch this movie. But there's like 10 or 11 of us there, and we were all just sort of sitting around trying to think of something to do. People were thinking, oh, maybe we'll go out to a theater and see a new movie or something. And I had a bunch of recommendations because I know everything that's playing.
Yeah.
And I had all my Academy screeners, and I brought them with me. So I had, like, if people really were lazy and didn't want to go out, we still had good movies to watch, like Silver Linings Playbook or Les Miserables. I had some of those that if people wanted to watch them, I could just put them on the TV and people could do that and I could go do something else. I don't know.
Yeah.
But ultimately, somehow, the like 10-year-old in the room was loud enough that she made us decide that we were going to watch on Netflix streaming because my Uncle Ron has a Roku player, which he watches a lot of British dramas on, which good for him. There's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah.
He was working through Downton Abbey at the time. In any case, that there was this really movie she liked, and apparently she's watched like 10 times, and so is my Uncle Ron because he babysits her sometimes, called Hachi, A Dog's Journey or something. And it stars Richard Gere and a bunch of other actors who are better than this movie. Which is not hard to be better than this movie, but Richard Gere is a legitimately good actor.
Yeah.
And so Richard Gere is this guy, and he every day he goes to work by train, which is weird because this did not look like it was happening significantly in the past, but he goes to work by train every day.
I'm really disappointed that Richard Gere is not the dog.
Motion capture?
Yeah, there's just like, when you said like a dog movie and then Richard Gere's in it, I was like, oh, that would be kind of cool. I'd watch a second of Richard Gere voicing a dog.
That'd be cool, yes. YouTube video.
Yeah.
Any case, I do wonder if the whole thing about there being a train is just a byproduct of them remaking a Japanese movie because trains are still used widely in Japan, and they just decided they weren't going to localize it for America and have him use a car or something. But, I mean, the train is central to the story, I guess, because he goes to work every day on the train, and one day he finds his, like, abandoned dog on the train. So he's like a puppy, and he takes it home, and his wife, who's like the really stereotypical wife in this movie, she's like, no, you can't keep that dog! We don't want a dog in our house! And she's like, she really hates this dog. Like, she's the Hitler of little dogs. She does not want that dog there. And I don't know if this is true or not, because I was only paying like half attention to it. It may break up their marriage at some point in the movie.
Richard Gere picks the dog over his shrew of a wife that does not want to have a dog.
That may or may not happen, but it definitely comes close to that. Like, she really does not want this dog. But he brings the dog home, and at first he's trying to find someone to adopt it. And this goes on for like 45 minutes, because this movie has like one plot point, which I'll get to, but they really stretch it out. That's pretty much the plot point. But there's another one. But in any case, he can't find a home, but at one point he finds out the dog is named Hachi, because he goes to like this, I don't know, it's this Japanese man in town, and the Japanese man looks at the dog collar, and it's got the kanji for 8. And I like saw it, I'm like, oh, that's 8. I know the kanji for 8. And it's like, that could be anything. That's probably not his name. That could be a classification number. Yeah. That could be anything. A Japanese person probably did not name their dog 8. That would be like an American dog, or American person just naming their American dog 8. No one would do that, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I might now. If I have a dog, I'm just going to name him 8.
Yeah.
But anyway, to prove you wrong.
But the Japanese man says, yeah, it's
Hachi, right?
Yeah, so the Japanese man says, see, he's Hachi. He's Hachi because it's on his dog collar. And so they start calling him Hachi. And I swear to God, from that point forward, the entire dialogue of the movie is just them saying Hachi over and over and over. It's that old writer's trick of, if you want to like create a shorthand for trying to make people invested in your character, you just say their name over and over and over and over again. That's what this movie does. It wants you to like the dog, so they just say Hachi nonstop. And
so you're saying the title is very appropriate to the movie then?
Very appropriate. But eventually, Richard Gere dies. Poor Richard Gere. And
what happens to Hachi?
This is the amazing thing about the movie. Hachi is so loyal that he still goes to the train station every day to wait for Richard Gere to come home from work.
Even though he's dead. So the dog's an idiot.
Yeah. Well, the dog would have forgotten about Richard Gere. I mean, I hate to say this, we do not live in a fantasy world where dogs have the memories of humans.
Yeah.
He would not even really be aware of that.
Yeah.
And so, but that's the story. So it's like, this is an old Japanese folktale of the loyal dog.
That's the whole thing?
Yeah.
That's the fucking movie?
Well, see, and the movie is based on this Japanese folktale I knew beforehand, which was this this dog who just was very loyal and went to the train station every day. That's the folk tale. I want to stress.
Yeah, like I can see, like that's totally fine as a folk tale.
Yeah.
How the fuck do you make a feature-length movie out of that?
Poorly. That's how.
You call up Richard Gere, apparently.
It's awful. And I was like suffering so much. What I eventually did was like, by the like 80-minute mark, it was so bad. I went to turn to my brother Thompson, like we've got to get out of here. We'd been kind of planning it, and so we eventually decided, even though it was a raging blizzard outside at that point, we drove 30 minutes away and went to see Django Unchained. So we'd see it a second time. Really good tonic for Hachi. Just people getting their brains blown out and just awesome Quentin Tarantino stuff.
Kind of a different movie.
Yeah,
Django Unchained.
So speaking of that, you saw Django Unchained over the break?
Yeah, I saw a few movies over the break. I saw The Hobbit in 3D 48 frames, but we'll talk about that after this. But I don't think we're really going to go much into Django Unchained. I thought it was a good movie. I didn't like it as much as you, which...
Yeah, I thought it was the best movie of the year. I think it's a great movie.
I'm just not a huge Quentin Tarantino guy, so it's like, don't take my opinion as... Like, I'm not really into Quentin Tarantino. I thought it was a good movie. If you really like Quentin Tarantino, you'll fucking love it. So... That's my basic review of the movie. But I want to kind of go into my weird experiences watching movies over the last because I haven't. This is kind of the only period of time I really go to the theater and watch movies because I go with my family. It's sort of like the holiday season, and lots of movies come out. And so this kind of all started. I never told this story, so I'm going to start all the way back when I saw The Hobbit for the first time. It was with my family. We were up here in Boulder. And for those of you who don't know, the Boulder has a sort of a reputation for being a cannabis hotspot, if you will. Marijuana is sort of a big thing here. That's the whole stuff with like legalizing pot happened very recently in Colorado, and it's not going to get into politics. That's sort of part of the like atmosphere, the undercurrent of Boulder.
The atmosphere is that you cannot breathe for like the stench of pot in the air.
Yeah. So anyways, my family went up here. We went to the Boulder Century Theater, which is near where we live, and sat down to see The Hobbit, and a fine gentleman sat down to my right. My family was on my left, and he was sort of, if you picture what a hippie is, that dictionary definition of a hippie sat down next to me, like kind of vaguely stinky, like seems like he didn't shower in a little bit. His hair is really long, like he was kind of unshaven.
I'm just imagining Otto from The Simpsons.
Effectively, yes. Like, he sat down next to me, he had his girlfriend or wife sitting next to him, and he also had a bag, like a grocery store bag, that he just brought into the theater. Didn't even seem like he snuck it in. You know how that's kind of like, if you don't want to buy the really overpriced shit the theater have, you will, bring, a bag, your mom will have a purse or something, have some candy or something in there.
Yeah.
So, people do that. This dude just kind of walked in with, a plastic grocery store bag full of, these organic rice cake things that they sell at a local, whole wheat store kind of thing. And he had those, he sat down next to me, and the movie starts playing, and very quickly I realized that he is laughing way too hard at way too much. The Hobbit that has some funny moments, but
it's not a comedy.
Yeah, it's not a comedy, and it's not that funny. This dude's, cracking up at everything that happens. And so
they broke the plates off!
Yeah, exactly. It's like, oh man, the CGI on Azog is terrible! But, yeah, and so I very quickly came to realize that this fine gentleman next to me was actually incredibly high. It was just kind of ridiculous at a certain point where it almost felt like sort of the stereotype of when you have an actor on TV pretending to be high and they just laugh at everything really over the top and going yeah man, that kind of thing. That caricature was sitting next to me in the theater, and the shit, and I could kind of get past that at a certain point. I could just kind of ignore that he was laughing. But the most annoying part of that whole thing was he had those fucking organic rice cakes, and he had, a bottomless supply of them, because they would come in, these little plastic wrappers, and he would be, I hear those, this, crinkle, crinkle, crinkle. He opens up the wrapper, and it's, crunch. He eats it, really fucking loudly right next to me. It's crunch, 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 crunch. I'm okay, he's done with that one, good. That was, the fifth one he's eaten. Where, halfway through the movie, clearly he's done. 10 minutes later, rustle, 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 crinkle, 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 chomp, chomp, chomp. It's you have more of those? He was eating those throughout the entire fucking movie. I don't know how he had that many fucking organic rice cake bullshit little patties with him. How he, just was maybe he knew someone at the theater, and they're just like, yeah, no, sure, man, you can just go on through with your giant plastic bag, just full, bottomless, like it was like a magical thing from fucking Harry Potter. Just like, you just like reach into the bag, fucking organic rice cakes come out. Just like, it's bigger on the inside. Anyways, that's what happened at The Hobbit. Then, okay, this isn't like a really weird thing, but it's sort of a remarkable thing about when I then later went to see Lincoln, was I have never, in like a theater-going experience, more seen the demographic for the movie represented visually in the seats, where I was by far the youngest person in that theater. It was like everyone else was at least like 50 years old or over. It was fucking ridiculous.
That's how actually my press screening of Lincoln was, which is hilarious because most of the critics were younger than the like public that had come to the press screening,
Yeah.
and I was significantly younger. So I usually get some like dirty looks from people when I like take the tape off my seat because that's my reserved seat. But people don't know who I am, I guess. So like they like people will always give me like dirty looks like, oh, so you're taking the reserved seats. I'm like, and then sometimes they'll ask me like, no, this my seat, that's my name. That's like this is for me. But like at Lincoln, I got a lot of like old people dirty looks. Those are the awkward dirty looks to get.
Yeah. No, but that's the only weird thing about seeing Lincoln. And then, okay, so then fast forward to going to see The Hobbit again. I went with my dad up here at the Boulder Century Theater because they're showing the special 3D 48 frames per second that I wanted to see for academic purposes. And we went there, and we're going into the line, and in front of us in the line is this mother and a kid who looked like he was like maybe 13 or 14 years old. And I think this was the first time they had ever been to a movie theater because we're right behind them in the line. There aren't that many people because it's an afternoon showing. It's not like a really popular screening time. And they're fucking standing there asking the woman who like gives you your tickets what The Hobbit was about. Like they had gone to the theater knowing that they were going to go see a movie they were going to go experience something called The Hobbit, but did not know what the fuck that thing was, so they asked the kind woman handing out tickets, what is The Hobbit? What is this about? And then this, like, the expression on the woman's face, she was like, this young, I'm pretty sure she probably goes to the university here, because she looked like she was about my age, and she was, like, baffled for a second. She was like, it's like The Lord of the Rings? And she's like, and the woman's like, oh, okay. Like, clearly that meant nothing to that woman. That woman has no idea what The Lord of the Rings was, but she's like, I can't keep on this awkward conversation that, like, even that woman was not so socially awkward as to realize that she just did something really fucking dumb and weird, and you just don't ask the person handing out tickets what the movie you're going to see is about.
That's not their job.
Yeah, that's not their job. That's not the place to do it. You're holding up the rest of the line. You're, like, making me wait. Like, what the fuck's wrong with you? And then, she gets, like, the tickets for the same screening as us. So it's, like, the 48 frames per second. It's just, like, and as soon as I realized that, and, like, this is some woman that knows nothing about movies, I'm like, oh, God, she has no idea what's going to happen. And so then they move forward, and this actually was kind of weird at the Century Theater. I've never gone to, like, a 3D screening. Like, every time I've gone to see a 3D movie, they always... The person, like, giving you the tickets also has the glasses. That's not how it worked at this theater. There was, like, another person as you, like, went past the ticket area and, like, into the theater proper. Like a preliminary before you get to the dude who checks your tickets, there was another woman who was handing out the glasses. And so that was kind of weird. But she stopped the woman and her child and was like, "What, you need these glasses?" And the woman looks at her for a second, and then the woman handing out glasses bends down to get the glasses out of the container. And while she's bending down and not looking, the woman and her child just fucking keep on walking right past her towards like the ticket area. So she looks up, looks around for a second, looks back, and is like, "No, miss, no, you need your glasses." And she stops. It's like, what are you talking about? No, you need this as a 3D movie. You need to wear these glasses. And she stops, and it's like this 3-minute explanation because I have to wait because I'm not just going to like take the 3D glasses without that woman there. But I have to wait. So watch this weird exchange where she's trying to explain. It's like, no, you have to. It's a 3D movie. You have to wear these glasses. It's a 3D movie. You have to put these on.
Does she have to explain the process of polarization?
Yeah, no, it was. I was like about to volunteer and go into like it's like okay, yeah, no, it's like the lenses are polarized. Yeah, it's like, okay, it's like there are light and like some of the light waves move, basically you think of it this way, some of the light waves move horizontally. It's like, okay, it's a whole thing. But yeah, no, it's like, it was getting into that, and it's just like, okay, I get this. take the glasses. It's like they go over into the theater. It's like I get my 3D glasses. We go in. And then past this, I did not notice this part, but my dad was telling this to me afterwards, that apparently that woman never went to the theater, even though I am damn sure they bought 2 tickets, and the kid left about 30 minutes in. So that, I don't know who those people were.
They're aliens.
Yeah, apparently some aliens visited our planet to like study us, to like see this thing called movie, and they were so baffled by it, they decided, we are not going, this is crazy shit, man. You have to wear glasses, shit's moving at 48 frames per second, this is insane. We gotta get out of here. And so the Boulder Century Theater staved off the alien invasion over the winter break. So that was nice. And then also, while watching The Hobbit, this is the 48 frames per second 3D screening, and so the really weird happened where it's at the point, it's really early on in the movie, they're doing the whole prologue thing where it's like, this is Erebor, this is like the Dwarven civilization, they've got all the gold, the dragon's attacking, and like halfway through that, all of a sudden, the screen goes completely black. Like it was going to cut, like hit to black and then cut to something else. It was like on that for like a second, and since I'd seen the movie, I was like, that doesn't happen at this point. Like there's no reason for it to cut to black right there. And then when it comes back on, even though I have my 3D glasses on, everything is still blurry. Like it looks like you have your 3D glasses off, and it was like the images were offset. It was like you're watching the 2 movies like side to side, like like somebody hit some fucking switch or something and turned the 3D off. Like they stopped shooting, like they switched the polarization, and so all of a sudden I am just watching the movie like really fucking close to each other, overlapping, and it was like that until it was only like that for maybe 3 minutes because someone got up and was like, hey guys, you turned the 3D. I didn't even know that was possible. I didn't know you could fucking do that. It's just like, oh, okay, I guess I'm watching a really blurry 2D movie for the next 5 minutes. And then eventually it it went to black, cut to black again, and then it came back up. It's proper 3D, and it was fine for the rest. So that was really weird. The weirdest part was that it happened while the movie was playing. I could understand if it started and something was wrong when they started playing the movie, but somebody up there fucked up while the movie was playing, fiddling with something they shouldn't have been fiddling with, and did that. But
there went the 3D.
Yeah. So that was really fucking weird. But then the weirdest one of all, and this is the one that actually kind
of... really?
Yeah, no, this one kind of really annoyed me because I didn't really think it would have affected my viewing of the last part of Django Unchained. I don't think it would have really made me love the movie, because I kind of had my opinion set on the movie at this point. And this is the first time this has ever fucking happened to me. I've never even thought about this happening before. But I'm watching Django Unchained. We're basically at the end. We're at the end part. It's the sort of a big climactic battle. You'll know what I'm talking about. It's all these people are invading this house. Shit's bloody, it's hugely violent, and luckily this happened at the very end of that scene, so it wasn't this really startling disruption, the scene's calming down, and then all of a sudden, lights come on, screen goes off, fucking fire alarm starts playing. So I was just sitting there in the theater, it's well,
that has happened.
Fuck.
I know what that's like. I actually, a long time ago, I went to see the Daredevil movie, which was terrible. But the last 10 minutes of Daredevil I've never seen, because that happened and we were actually evacuated, had to leave, and I never saw the last 10 minutes of Daredevil. Okay. I don't care, because it's a terrible movie, but Django's good, so this is bad.
Yeah, and so that happens, I'm well, shit, I guess we have to go leave, so it's we get up, we go, it's it was really exciting. I got to go through this side exit that just goes kind of straight out of the building. This is just go out, and me and my dad were kind of just talking about the movie, and we're well, what do you think? Yeah, it's what do you think we should do? Because this had never happened to my dad either. And this is the shittiest part about this, is that when we had gone to the theater, it was 55 degrees, so it was kind of chilly, but it wasn't cold. When we had to leave because of the fire alarm, it was 20 degrees outside.
Oh, God.
I was not dressed for 20-degree weather, so we're sitting out there, and it's well, should we just wait? Because I didn't think that, my dad kind of had the same opinion on the movie as I did. It's I thought it was a really good movie. I didn't think it was great, but I really want to see what happens at the very end.
Well, especially because if you've seen Django, the last act is where everything comes together. It's the important part of the movie.
And even though it felt like that was Like, it felt like that movie could have ended 5 minutes after it went out, but actually there's quite a bit more that happens after that point. So it's like, if I had not seen that ending, I actually would have missed out on a pretty significant chunk and a pretty awful Quentin Tarantino cameo. But yeah, so we're just kind of standing outside, and we're standing there for like 10 minutes, and it's like, eventually we're just like, okay, maybe we should leave. Luckily, like, some theater people came out, it's like, okay, no, some fucking asshole apparently pulled the alarm. There was no actual, like, fire or emergency. So then we were shown back to our seats. We got to sit down. I'm sure that, like, I can't even, because we sat down and we had to wait like another 10 minutes for the movie to actually start up. And then when it did start up, it like started up in the same place without sound, and it like backed up, and they did the same thing, but it was like the protection was kind of off, so then they backed up, and it's like, okay, now it's right, and we had to watch the last 5 minutes of that scene again.
Nobody who works in theaters now knows how to show a fucking movie.
Yeah, or apparently they have no idea. Don't press the 3D switch, asshole.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my theater going experience for like the last month. So I don't want to go to movie theaters fucking anymore, because the next time it happens, I think the movie theater is going to explode while I'm sitting in my seat. It's just like, yeah, what the fuck happened when I wasn't going to theaters? They fucked everything up, and everybody went insane.
Exactly, and you know, Sean, the way you're describing things, this is why I've come to the conclusion that if I stop reviewing movies professionally and I stop going to press screenings, I will never go to a theater again. Because I am done with movies. There's 2 or 3 theaters in Denver that I will go to because they're really good and they never fuck up. Mm-hmm. And that's the Denver Film. That's now the C Film Center. It's the Denver Film Society's theater. They're great, and they've got 35mm projectors. So jolly ho on that. The Cine Capri at the Harkins Theaters in Northfield. I love that theater. It's the biggest screen in Colorado, and they've got a great staff. It's a great theater, great place to see a movie. I've never had a problem there once, and it's the theater I go to most often when I actually pay to see a movie.
Yeah.
And then the Mayan or the Esquire landmark theaters, those are good too. Although not the Mayan anymore, because they put in digital projectors, and so did the Esquire, but the Esquire did it properly. The Mayan did it in such a way now where their screen ratio isn't right. And I guess they could still show the movie on a 35mm. It's just you missed little bit on the sides, which is fine. It's just a little bit. But now I guess they can't adjust the digital projector like that. So now when you watch a widescreen movie like The Hobbit or something, and they don't show The Hobbit there, I'm just, as an example, there are black bars at the top and bottom, like your fucking TV. So, Mayan, shitty place to see a movie now, I'm sorry to say. So there's 3 theaters in Denver that I like, and I will actually pay to see a movie at. Otherwise, I just don't want to go, because there's always some problem like what you described. Or there's annoying people who don't know how to see a fucking
people
movie.
Who are high, or aliens.
Or talking during the movie, or texting, or whatever. It's always annoying. Or the sound goes out, or the lights come up like 10 minutes before the end, or something weird like that. Or just there's always something shitty, or like the projector is way too dim and you can barely see the film. Like I went to take my family to see Silver Linings Playbook the other day, made the mistake of going to a regular movie theater to see it, and the projector was like half lit. It's terrible. And that's a good looking movie, and it looked wrong. And it's just like, the only way I can tolerate theaters at the moment is press screenings, because it usually alleviates at least some of that. But, and because I don't have to pay. But it's like, even that, I'm just kind of tired of it, because here's the other thing. Because it's all now digital projection, my TV can do that.
Yeah.
Theaters offer me nothing, except size, and even then...
And some really overpriced soda and popcorn.
Yes.
That you shouldn't buy.
Yeah, and I can go get a 12-pack of Mountain Dew for more than one theater soda, and I could drink that whole 12-pack if I wanted to during the movie. I wouldn't, because I'm not crazy.
You could go find some bottomless supply of organic rice cakes if you so desired.
But then watch it at home.
Yeah, and bother nobody.
And now I'm thinking, like up at our apartment, we don't have a 5.1 system, but we could install one really easily, right?
Yeah.
It just costs a little bit of money. We're not going to do it right now. But back at my house, like my parents' house, we've got a really nice 5.1 sound system. And it's not, we don't have a big TV. It's like 42 inches, but it's big enough. And so it's well enough theatrical. Yeah. And it's preferable to the theater because I control everything.
Yeah. You can pause the movie if you have to go to the bathroom. It's like everything. Yeah, no.
We've got Blu-ray now. And honestly, all movie theaters look like now is bigger Blu-rays. Mm-hmm. There's nothing special about it in the slightest visually. And sonically, there kind of is, but Blu-ray sound is lossless. So it can do what a theater can do, just with fewer speakers. So I'm at my wit's end on theaters, and I think you are too.
Yeah.
And the other thing for me is just there's the whole rigmarole of you have to pay your exorbitant price for your movie, your exorbitant price for your concessions. I don't get concessions, but sometimes my family does, and it's annoying because I'm always like, you shouldn't pay $8 for popcorn. It's not that good. In any case, then you have to go in and you have to watch the 30 minutes of commercials which are playing so loudly you can't hear yourself think, let alone carry on a conversation with the person you're with. Because sometimes, maybe I want to say something to the people I'm going to a movie with, Did they ever think about that? No, they didn't. And so you've got to go through all that rigmarole, and then they have to start the trailers, and the trailers go on for like 20 fucking minutes. And they're all
they especially for Django Unchained, the trailers
they did,
felt like fucking forever. It's like usually they show a good amount of trailers, but I'm kind of excited. I'm like, okay, what's the next movie going to be? And it's like, oh Jesus, stop showing the fucking trailers! Yeah. Oh my god, and all these movies look awful anyways.
I've seen Django twice, and the first time was at a press screening, and it was like 9 a.m. and there was just critics, so they didn't show any previews or anything. Second time I went, I paid for it, and we went to Iowa, like I said, and I was with my brother, and was it just me, or did your screening also have nothing but bad horror movie trailers?
There were a few bad horror movie trailers. There were some bad comedy trailers, like just cross it over. There was Scary Movie.
Oh yeah, that was
whatever
awful.
Number it is. Which I was really actually kind of disappointed because I've seen Scary Movie 1 and I thought it was kind of funny, and I know they're fucking awful, but it's like just the idea of doing a proper parody of like the Paranormal Activity movies. You could make that so fucking funny.
You could,
and it looked so fucking bad. I was like, come on! There is so much comic material in that conceit of the Paranormal Activity movies, and how have you mined none of it? Evidenced by the trailer, and usually they put all the best shit in comedies in the fucking trailers. So this.
I mean, and at one point, the Scary Movie movies had Anna Faris in them, who's a really good comic actress. Now they have nobody, apparently. Like, they have Charlie Sheen in it.
I did not recognize, anybody from that trailer.
No, because Anna Faris is too good for them now, and she was always too good for them, but in any case.
At the very least, it seems like, I don't know whether or not they're going to be good, but there's a suite of sci-fi movies coming out. There's there's a Will Smith one. There's a Tom Cruise one.
The Oblivion one looks good, actually, to me.
Yeah.
After Earth is M. Night Shyamalan, so I just don't give a shit. Because all M. Night Shyamalan movies have interesting trailers. You can cut an interesting trailer for anything.
I didn't even think the trailer was that good. I was I thought... I figured out that they were on Earth 2 seconds into that trailer. Yeah. This is definitely... They're on some sort of crazy future Earth.
But Oblivion looks kind of interesting. A, that director, I thought, did a really good job with Tron Legacy. And... B, I like Tom Cruise in anything.
And C, Morgan Freeman's in it.
Yes.
And he's got kick-ass goggles.
He looks like he's a bad guy or something.
Yeah, it looked like Morgan Freeman crossed with Morpheus.
Yeah. It looked like a sort of, I don't want to say blazingly original, but it looked different. It's not the same movie we've seen 10 times. You got Pacific Rim coming out next year.
Yeah, that was the other one I was thinking of. Yeah. So at the very least, because it seems like we don't get a lot of sci-fi movies anymore, so... Even if, some of them may be good and maybe bad, at least that's happening.
Yeah. Well, we got this year we had pretty opposite ends of the sci-fi spectrum. We had Looper, which was this great original sci-fi movie, sort of, small film that was really good. Mm-hmm. Then we had Prometheus, which was really big, and they spent a lot of money on it.
And it was a flaming piece of shit.
Yeah. I shouldn't say they spent a lot of money. I should say they put a bunch of money in it.
Yeah, you should say they wasted a lot of money.
Yeah, they pissed all over it.
They wasted a lot of money and a lot of time.
And a lot of talent.
How the fuck did it... Man, dude, how did we get back around to Prometheus?
All conversations come back to Prometheus.
Yeah, this is our first Prometheus, slam of 2013. Feels good.
Yeah.
Feels like 2013 just started.
It does. We've hit our stride for Season 2.
Yeah.
Coming to our own. But anyway... You've got to tell me, what did you think of the 48 frames per second 3D Hobbit experience?
I really fucking liked it. Okay. I thought, that... I'm going to say right now that is how I'm going to watch the other movies for the first time.
Good.
That 48 frames definitely worked for me. I think, and this is one of the things with 48 frames per second is that after I saw it and I was like, yeah, no, that looked really fucking awesome. It was kind of weird for the first minute. Every once in a while I would have kind of a weird moment. But the thing with 48 frames per second that I cannot stand is that everybody who talks about 48 frames per second that really dislikes it, a lot of the critics, they sound like fucking racists because they are so biased against 48 frames per second just by their very mindset and by having watched 24 frames per second movies for their entire lives and that being their profession, that it's they're not it felt like a lot of those people just went in there not willing to accept 48 frames per second.
Sean, I can tell you right now, I saw this movie with a room full of like 30, 40 critics. There were a lot of people there. Everyone was making fun of the movie before it started because of that. And it was kind of sickening.
Exactly.
And I hope, I didn't like it, but I hope when I explained it, I didn't sound like that.
It didn't sound like you were just being this weird... I mean,
I wanted to like it. We had lots of conversations, even on this podcast. I was excited for it. It didn't work for me, but even then, I've never said I'm inherently opposed to it. It's just, it didn't work for me. I'm fine with Peter Jackson doing it, especially because they've taken good lengths to make sure multiple versions of the movie are available.
Yeah.
Which they've done everything they should do as filmmakers. They've accommodated everyone, and they've tried to do... I appreciate taking a technological step forward. Even if I didn't like it, innovation is good.
And I think you need to see more 48 frames per second movies, because there's nothing... This is the thing about 48 frames per second, is there's nothing inherently about it to, like, really dislike. Because... in fact, there's more to inherently dislike about 24 frames per second, because I've said this before, the sort of, like... strobing motion blur-ish effect that you get when watching 24 frames per second, like, really fucking bugs me. I think that's because I play a lot of video games where it's like higher frame rate. Fuck yes, when you play video games, you need that especially. So I'm much more used to sort of like consuming material in that fashion. You know, I've watched God knows how much Doctor Who that is in like 30 to 60 frames per second because it's all digital. So like I'm more used to those sort of frame per second frame rates, and I think people just are not willing to accept it, and one of the weird things about it is that all it does is it makes the motion smoother. That is literally all that 48 frames per second does.
I gotta cut in here. I agree. I would like to maybe see this again. I'm willing to watch the other two in this format to see if I adjust to it more. But there are things about it that when I watched it in 2D and 48 frames per second, and parts of the 2D just looked better to me, and it wasn't just because it was smoother.
Literally, the only thing that 48 frames per second does is makes the motion smoother. But that is literally all it does.
But there are byproducts of that. It looks, to me, all the sets and art, like, and makeup and everything looks chintzy because it's too smooth.
I think it all looked exactly like the effects, the sets, everything about that looked exactly the same.
Oh, I can't say that at all. It looked awful.
Like they didn't look that good in 24 frames per second. The makeup effects aren't as good as the Lord of the Rings were. Because they're much more exaggerated, much more over the top, and you've got like all the dwarves with like the huge fucking noses. It looks the exact fucking same. But the motion is the only thing that's different.
The CGI didn't look...
I thought the CGI looked better. It felt like the CGI was designed... I didn't think it looked great, but I thought it felt like it was designed to move in 48 frames per second, because it obviously was. Like, I felt like Azog was a more believable character in 48 frames per second. I thought watching the battle scenes looked way better in 48 frames per second, because I could see what was going on.
And I had an opposite reaction to all of this, and I don't know what it is. I honestly do believe either there was something wrong with the screening I saw, which is an absolute possibility given how theaters are run these days. And that was the first...
There's something wrong with mine for like a good 5 minutes with 3D.
And because I saw it 2 weeks before anyone else, this was the first time that theater had ever shown a 48 frames per second movie. In fact, that was the first time a theater in Denver had ever shown a 48 frames per second movie. It is entirely possible they messed up. And
the only thing that should be different, basically, would be a switch that you... Alright, you probably wouldn't even really flip a switch. Well, because you need the projectors, because the shutters have to be different.
Yeah.
So, okay.
There's a firmware update and all these other things. So it's possible, and I have heard of that. That has happened, as far as I know, that there were some projectors where just the frames weren't coming together the way they should. I will also say, as I said last time, I have eye problems that have always prevented me from seeing 3D right. It is entirely possible that the way you process the shutters on the projector, and then you have the extra layer of 3D glasses refracting off my eyeglasses, stopped it all from coming together.
So yeah, like I could definitely see the 3D. I thought the 48 frames made the 3D look better, but not to like... I like 3D now.
No, it looked flat to me. I didn't see much depth. And, honestly, I would be more interested in seeing the 48 frames version of The Hobbit if it were in 2D.
I would have preferred that as well, but...
Because then I think you wouldn't have... I do think there might be a technical issue there with me, because you've got like 3 different layers of refraction going on because I wear eyeglasses and then I have to wear 3D glasses over it. And then the projector was also dim. I'll just say that when I saw it.
Yeah, that was actually one of the things I was really happy about is that the projector was not dim in mine, because usually when I end up seeing 3D movies, the movie looks really dark, and it felt appropriate. Like, it didn't feel like the movie looked at like the same brightness with the glasses on as when I saw it in 24 frames. So
I'm
I
definitely
had that lucky experience.
Yeah, and maybe I will give it another try. And
I think like, if you did not like 48 frames per second the first time you saw it, there's nothing inherently about it that will make it bad. Everything about it is a bias. Everything about, like, sort of that side of it is because you're so used to seeing 24 frames per second that you go in with the mindset of that is what a movie looks like, and when a movie doesn't look like that, your immediate reaction is to reject that. And a lot of critics are just like, this is bad, I'm going to try to come up with some vague reason, like, this looks like a Spanish soap opera. Well, because Spanish soap operas are shot at higher frame rates, but that's because it's digital.
But they're also shot poorly.
But they're shot poorly. But what you're now equating the higher frame rate with the shoddy production value of Spanish soap operas, those things are not equivalent. You're just coming up with reasons to try to explain why you are rejecting this new thing. And that's exactly what it felt like when I was watching the thing in 48 frames per second, is that it felt like there was a moment when I was watching it where it's like, either you have accepted that this is how the movie's going to look, or you're like, no, I want to see 24 frames per second movies for the rest of my life. And I was like, fuck it, let's go with this. And I feel like most critics are like, no, I'm not going to accept that.
And I completely agree with you that I think way too many critics were harsh in the wrong ways, because there are legitimate complaints to make about The Hobbit, and the way that a lot of the complaints I heard about The Hobbit were really low blows that had absolutely nothing to do with the diegesis of the movie, either its technical level or its narrative level. And I was pretty sickened by most of the reviews for The Hobbit, and I'm someone who did not give it a perfect review.
Yeah.
But I think I gave it a fair review. And I'm proud to say I did, because a lot of people did not.
Yeah, no, definitely, because after I saw it, I went through and I read a lot of reviews just to sort of like, because again, even though, I should say I enjoyed The Hobbit even more watching it on my second time, and I think part of that was the 48 frames. I think it's a movie that gets better the second time you watch it, because particularly, like, the dwarf characters a lot better, so you're, like, able to be like, okay, yeah, no, Bofer's, like, that's Bofer, that's Bomber, and so I know
you also
what's going to be significant about those characters later on, so I know to, like, pay attention to them earlier on.
Exactly, and I also, my second time, for me, it was like, I knew what the structure was going in, so I liked it just narratively more.
Yeah.
Some of my narrative issues with the movie were lessened the second time, for instance, but yeah, I think after hearing you talk about this, I will go see it again in 48 frames, because I just want to see if I can see it right. And, the way you described it, I understand you had that great description of the moment where you decide either I'm going to accept this or not.
Yeah.
And I feel like, I never felt like I went to that juncture, because everything you just said about it, about, like, movies don't need to be at this frame rate, that's what I was saying before it came out. And I agree. I do think there are things about frame rates that we don't immediately need to start shooting every movie in a higher frame rate.
Yeah.
Animation, for instance, hand-drawn animation, it would be tough to do that in a higher frame rate.
Yeah, you have to drop twice as many frames.
Studio Ghibli should not go back and redo all their movies in 48 frames or something. But I was excited to see, because this is a legitimate step forward, and there's no reason it shouldn't happen. So I was excited to it going in. I was excited that I was going to be seeing the 48 frames per second version. And when it started, obviously there was something off, because I'm not used to it. But I knew that was going to happen. I was ready for there to be something different, because that's the point of seeing it that way. There's going to be something different. And I think for me, it just, again, I kept wanting to like it that way, and it didn't quite click for me. And that's why I keep thinking there must have been some kind of technical issue, because I didn't go in wanting to hate it. And there were scenes that came together perfectly. And I will say, what looked good to me in 48 frames when I saw it is everything that happened in the caves or in a nighttime scene did look good. Especially the riddles in the dark scene did look fucking gorgeous in 48 frames.
Yeah.
And it was kind of unbelievable, the clarity there. But all the daytime scenes, like New Zealand, honestly, it didn't look like they were shooting on location to me when I saw it in 48 frames. New Zealand looked kind of ugly to me that way. And when I saw it the second time, I realized it was the exact same New Zealand as in Lord of the Rings, and it looked beautiful. But, yeah, so
for me, I think the moment that definitely really, there are a few, like, whenever the camera moves is when, like, I really feel like 48 frames is like, oh, thank God I don't have that, like, sort of stuttering effect that 24 frames happens, because you can basically almost, like, see between the frames, because, you know, we are not creatures that see at that, like, weird janky motion. But I think in particular the scene that really stood out to me as, like, I, like, thought it looked like shit when I saw it in 24 frames per second, but looked like I could actually tell what was going on in 48 frames per second was the flashback scene where the dwarves are trying to take Moria, and it's like that big battle outside of Moria. I was like, the first time I saw that, like, that entire thing just looked like it was CGI in 24 frames per second. Like, the screen felt so cluttered, there was so much motion, there was so much going on the screen that I was like, this just looks like a digital bullshit, like, what the fuck am I looking at? And 48 frames per second, I'm like, this makes sense. Like, I can see Thorin. Like, some of the fucking orcs in that scene, I'm pretty sure were not digital. And I was almost positive that they were when I watched it in 24 frames per second. I was like, no, that's... Like, he's fighting an actual dude there. And that dude's fighting an actual dude. Like, that's an actual dwarf. And, okay, no, Azog's a digital bullshit. But, like, those people are real. They're actually fighting. And I could, like, see what was going on. And, like, that was... Like, I had accepted 48 frames per second up to that point. But that moment was, like... They can really do something with 48 frames per second. They can have so much more going on the screen. They can have so many more moving parts. Like, it made me think, I kind of want to see a Transformers movie in 48 frames per second to see if that would make a difference. If, like, I would be able to tell what is happening in those fucking scenes in a Transformers movie.
Well, that's just bad. Because I can tell you now.
Yeah, but like, you know what I mean with, like, all the moving parts of the Transformers themselves in the like those designs. I felt like the first time I saw that Moria scene, it looked like Transformers to me. It looked like there's just too much going on right now.
Oh,
I'd be really curious to see that.
I completely agree. If Michael Bay does not shoot Transformers 4 in 48 frames per second, he is an idiot, because that is what he was born to make movies in.
It's definitely, if you've got a lot of different moving parts on screen, it's like, it's to a point that it's like, Jesus, I can't believe that makes such a huge difference when I saw that scene for the second time.
Yeah. So it's a complex issue, and I want to see it again, and who knows, maybe it just won't be for me, and, you know, that's too bad, but...
Just be the old man, like, it's the racist old man against 48 frames per second movies.
But I'm not the person who's been saying that. I never, sat down...
That bias may be too deeply ingrained, man. It's in your fucking subconscious. You gotta conquer it.
I know.
But the other thing I want to say about 48 frames per second that I thought was a really interesting thing that I never thought about, and it's like as an academic point, is that I thought what was so fucking fascinating about it was like with the second like the movie started, you have that first like the really quick like 1 minute, not even like a minute long sequence of Bilbo, like old Bilbo in his house, like kind of going through his scenes, like, and he says like 3 lines of dialogue. And, that's the very first shot
and he looks like see. Benny Hill because he just bursts across the screen.
Yes, I thought that was fucking fascinating because it made me realize my brain is interpreting that as faster movement because I'm seeing twice as much visual information in the exact same amount of time. And then it made me retroactively realize I thought that, like, maybe 1 minute long sequence felt like it was like 5 minutes long when I saw it in 24 frames per second. Like, it felt like it was a lot more protracted than seeing it, like, that being the first moment you see in 48 frames per second. It felt like that was like a 5 second long sequence. I thought that was like it's kind of, I guess it's not really obvious, but it makes sense when you think about it in retrospect. But the fact that your brain interprets motion that relatively, that it's like when you see just like twice as much movement in the same amount of time, you register that as it moving twice as fast effectively, even though that's not really what's happening. I thought that was fucking fascinating. Like, even though it didn't get me into the movie right away, I was like, holy shit. Like, I had this, like, revelation. It's like, that's really cool. That's a cool thing I never thought about my own brain.
But see,
and the means I perceive motion.
But see, Sean, it looked like that to me for most of the movie. Though.
And that's why I'm saying it felt like you couldn't accept it. Like, you couldn't get into it. Because I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then eventually I was like, no, this is how things move. Like, this is how things move in real life. It's just you're such in the mindset when you're watching a 24 frames per second movie that that's the way it looks, that you're just like, that's the way it has to look. And now it's like, if you had only seen 48 frames per second movies, and then you watch the 24 frames per second one, it would feel like that movie is moving twice as slow instead of that movie moving twice as fast. It's all completely biased. And that's why everyone sounds racist, because they're effectively fucking racist.
Towards a movie format.
Yeah, towards a movie format.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like terrible, but it's the same basic thing. It's the same basic, like, I'm not willing to accept this sort of new thing. I am biased against this new thing.
And I
think if you're capable, some people are going to have a super fucking hard time of accepting it. Some people are. I think you're going to have to see multiple movies to be able to accept it and to get used to it. Multiple movies like back to back, effectively, and it's going to be hard. Some people are not going to have that problem, but I think you just need to realize that literally the only thing that is different is that motion is faster, and everything else is a byproduct of that, and you just have to get used to it, and it's effectively the exact same. Like, that's it. That's why I come down on it.
And I think you are probably correct. And I think just through this conversation I have resolved, I will go, because I want to see the movie again anyway.
Yeah.
It's a good movie. I will probably go find a good theater, if I can, that's playing it in 48, and just try it one more time. So, and then maybe we'll talk about it one more time. But
yeah. But regardless, like, even if you don't like 40 frames per second, I think it's super fucking interesting. Like, having that really, like, visceral experience of, like, this is how my brain interprets motion on screen. Thought that was interesting.
It's definitely interesting. And I would love to see what you saw, what my brother saw, what other people who have told me 48 is really so clear and beautiful. I want to see that. I want to be able to see that. So, yeah. All right, so Sean, is it time to talk about Doctor Who?
Sure, we can talk about Doctor Who.
All right, let's talk about Doctor Who. All right, so we are talking about the Doctor Who Christmas special, The Snowmen. Written by Stephen Moffat. This one's a little different than past Christmas specials because it's really just episode 6 of the 14-episode season that's being aired really, really strangely.
Yeah, shut. It's like, I just wanted to, like, start this off with, how fucking weird is it that this is, like, the middle episode of the season, and yet it feels like you could, like, start watching this episode, like, this could be your first episode of Doctor Who, because it's like, you've got new opening titles, you've got a new TARDIS, and then, like, the first half of the episode, the companion is the main character, and it slowly introduces you into the Doctor character.
Yeah, and this is the thing, Christmas episodes are often great episodes to start with. In fact, if someone came to me 2 weeks ago and said, hey, I've heard you talk about Doctor Who, should I just start watching with the next new episode? I would say absolutely. Watch this Christmas special, and if you want to go back and watch other stuff, great, because it's all good. But you could start here.
Yeah, but if you don't want to work through a backlog, you can fucking start right up with this episode.
This would be I agree, because there's it introduces you to a lot of Doctor Who's best eccentricities, too.
Yeah.
So, in any case.
But it's so just fucking weird that it is the middle episode of the season. It's like, why the fuck isn't this just, like, the first episode? I mean, I know they kind of had to set some stuff up with, like, the Doctor being in this, like, mindset that he's in at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah, but
it's like...
But those first 5 episodes should have just been called Series 7, and this should just be Series 8. And it would be a really short Series 7, and I get that, but it was its own thing.
Yeah, it really was.
And it was also produced independently. I mean, because they had a different cast.
Yeah.
Whatever. Anyway, here's the weirdest thing to me is that we always buy the Doctor Who box sets, right? Because they've got a lot of good stuff in them. Mm-hmm. The Series 7 box set is going to be really weird, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. Like, I wonder if this episode is going to be on the same disc as some of, like, the first 5 episodes. It's like, no, they shouldn't be. Like, they should be, like, 2 different things.
Yeah.
They're so, like, I wouldn't be able to go from, like, just, like, episode 5 and then, like, straight into episode 6 thinking it's part of the same season. It's like, you've got different fucking opening credits.
Different
like,
titles.
Who does that in the middle of a fucking season? You change the opening credits? That's crazy. Godlike House didn't change the opening credits ever. Like, it was the same fucking, at least as up to, like, me watching, like, the first 5 seasons, they had the same fucking opening credits. They changed the cast, and they had the same opening credits with the old fucking cast, just with, like, new cast member names on it. It's like, but you fuckers changed it in the middle of the fucking season. That's crazy. Fucking crazy.
Well, we'll talk about all that in a minute. So here's what I want to say about the Snowmen. I think this was a good episode, often a really good episode, right?
Yeah.
And we are overall positive on it, yes?
Yeah, definitely.
And definitely this is a step in the right direction given the last 5.
Yes.
Okay. And we will have many nice things to say about it. I want to talk about all those nice things. but I also feel that we need to get the worst of the worst out of the way first, or else we'll enter a rabbit hole we will never escape from.
Yeah.
And that is that, Sean, I am sorry I misunderstood you before. I always thought when you complained about the Doctor Who puns they've been making, I thought, Sean's getting a little over the top. I don't know if he really needs to be this angry. Fuck the goddamn Doctor Who puns. They are terrible. It felt like in the Snowmen, every other line of dialogue was a Doctor Who pun. And it pissed me off. And it just got me on edge, where I was waiting for the next Doctor Who pun going, this is good, but they could ruin it so fast. This conversation these two people are having, I like it. Oh god, they're about to... Oh god, Doctor Who pun. Fuck. These 5 minutes are ruined.
I'm so glad you have finally seen the light, because the way they did it in this episode, this was like my worst nightmare when I saw they were going in this direction. It's always pissed me off just because I thought it was a really dumb, kitschy kind of thing to do, and you could only do it once every 2 years, even though they did it once or twice a season since the new show started up. But then once they started trying to make it a fucking plot point, they started trying to make it a fucking thing, and now every fucking episode it's Doctor Who! It's just, and this one was the worst by far, because like you said, it was at least... I counted at least 5 while I was watching the episode. Retroactively, I was thinking back to them and I remembered 5. I'm sure there were more of them, because it was fucking constant. Doctor Who, who are you? I'm the Doctor. Doctor Who? That's not my name, that's the name of the show, ha 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 ha. Fuck you! Just fucking stop it! It's not funny. It just immediately takes you out of the experience.
But here's the thing. It being not funny is not as bad to me as it being substanceless. And that's what got to me in this episode. Because I can take a bad joke every once in a while. Whatever. It happens. But now it's a plot point. And now in this episode, because it happened 5 or 6 different times, it's explicitly a plot point.
Yeah, they are fucking going to hammer this into my mind like a fucking nail over the rest of the season, and hopefully it stops at the end of the season.
Yeah, and so throughout Series 7 of Doctor Who so far, and the end of Series 6, we've been sort of slowly building to okay, this is the question. Well, but here's the thing. You keep asking the question, and you keep rephrasing it in different ways, but it keeps coming out as just the Doctor Who pun, and we know we're building up to something because this is a plot point, question that should never be asked. Fine in theory, whatever.
Yeah, it really is the question that should never be asked.
Yeah.
Straight up in the show, the question that should never be asked.
But here's what I was saying, is that this is a plot point, though, but no matter how many times you say it, until you get to the resolution of whatever that is, nothing's happening.
Yeah.
You're just making a pun over and over, and whatever plot point this is eventually going to become is not being furthered. And there's no way they can retroactively fix this. If somehow this dumb Doctor Who subplot resolves in a really cool way, which I don't think it can. It really can't.
No.
But even hypothetically, alternate universe, it did. It wouldn't ever have any chance of fixing any of this, because none of this has anything to do with what that resolution will be.
Yeah, there was the only time the Doctor Who thing even sort of mentioned the whole question thing was the first time it happened, and then the Doctor was talking to someone and he was oh, she asked the question. It's why did you answer something like that or whatever. It's they mentioned the vaguely the question thing once, and they kept on making the puns without it even being related to the plot point they're trying to make. They just wanted to keep you reminding. It's Doctor Who, you don't know his name. Doctor Who, we're going to do something with it maybe sometime later on.
And that's my problem, is there's nothing behind it. It's completely empty. And so it really is just a bad joke, because there's supposed to be some kind of significance to it, and there isn't. And they can do it over and over and over again, and it will not have that significance until they actually do something with it. And I don't think they can do something good with it, but if doing something with it would be better than doing nothing with it.
Yeah.
At the very least,
Well, I think they should do nothing with it, and that they should not have done it.
Yes, I agree.
This was, we can go back to the podcast I said, when that fucking happened, could be the worst fucking thing that happens to Doctor Who. Them asking this question, no, this is fucking dumb and awful, and they're still fucking doing it, and they're going to keep on doing it, and... it's so fucking bad. It's so bad.
And this is why it's a problem now is because now it seems like they are committed. This is going to be
seriously.
something. And what bothers me is that everything else on the show at the moment is good. Mm-hmm. There's so much, like Doctor Who, even if we had some quibbles with the first part of Series 7, and even if we had some quibbles with the end of Series 6, by and large, this is a fantastic show.
Yeah.
And Stephen Moffat is writing a fantastic show. He has this one element, though, that really could ruin it if it resolves as stupidly as it has started. It could fuck shit up. And what I'm worried about is that Matt Smith is one of the all-time best doctors.
Yeah.
He's a historically great doctor. And if this winds up being part of the resolution of his arc and how he regenerates and all this, and they ruin his last half of his show with this shit, that's just wrong. That would be like...
Probably what is going to happen.
That would be like erasing all the episodes with Patrick Troughton.
Yeah, well, no. That wouldn't be that.
I know,
that's
not that bad.
That's like a war crime. That's a crime against humanity.
But
this would be like going and kicking every Doctor Who fan in the nuts personally. Like Stephen Moffat, just like, I'm going to take a tour around the world. It's like
it's my pilgrimage.
Yeah.
So that's bad, and this is why it's so bad. Is we have to focus on it, even though by and large this was a good episode.
Yeah,
and it had way more good things in it than bad things. But when they do this, and it sticks out like a sore thumb, because here's the thing about Doctor Who. Doctor Who is a fantastic show with a fantastic premise. It can take you to all these different times and worlds and species and characters and places, and that's what's wonderful about it. But it requires, you have to get into the mindset, I hate to use the term, it's a suspension of disbelief. You have to go on this journey with them and accept the fantasy of it and the sci-fi of it.
And there's nothing that kills suspension of disbelief more than a really obvious, ham-fisted title drop.
Yes.
Like, nothing takes you out of experience more than that.
And that's what I'm saying, is that when they make the Doctor Who puns, then it stops being a show and you see the seams. You think, then you see that this was a script that was written, that was performed, that was, they had to put together and they had to go through all this and have a fucking title drop because they thought it was kind of clever in the moment, or in 5 moments, I guess. And that's the thing about Doctor Who, is that at its best, you don't see the seams. Yeah. And when they do this, you see the seams, and you shouldn't see those.
Yeah, I mean, because effectively what the title drop is, they're breaking the fourth wall.
Yeah.
It's like the least, like, offensively, like, in-your-face way of breaking the fourth wall, but they are still breaking the fourth wall, and that is not something that ever should be done in a drama.
No.
Because that's, like, the only purpose of breaking the fourth wall is for comedic effect.
Yeah.
And Doctor Who can be funny. Doctor Who, as a whole, is not a comedy.
No.
It's like, don't fucking do this bullshit, but they will keep on doing this bullshit, and hopefully at least they dial down the puns. Hopefully it stays at least as a plot point. That is like the best you can fucking hope for, even though it's a horrible, awful plot point. With the direction they're going, maybe they'll just stop doing the dumb pun side of it.
I agree. If they dial down the puns, or get rid of them entirely, and the resolution of this is just, it goes back to the Doctor
Who!
I was going to say, it just goes back to, they have to save the world by the Doctor telling River Song his name, and that's how she knows it in silence in the library, but we don't actually hear it. I'm fine with that. Just do that. I'm fine with it relative to where we are. I would rather...
Hopefully we don't find out that the Doctor's name is like Gary or something. It's like, well, that's dumb.
And I don't want to keep harping on this too long, but the last thing I want to say on this is that bringing it all together, taking the title and putting it in the show like this, that's especially stupid because one of the cool things that Doctor Who has always had is that I like the separation between the title and the show's diegesis.
Yeah.
It's Doctor, like, the idea of him just being the Doctor, that's great for the show because that makes him mysterious, it makes him someone you can really reinvent all the time.
Yeah.
It makes him, that's part of why he can regenerate, is he really doesn't have a name. He just has this basic identity. He's a Doctor. And then Doctor Who, as a title, reflects that nature, that enigmatic nature of the show. Mm-hmm. But when you combine it all, you kind of ruin that separation, which is what makes it cool.
Yeah. No, I definitely agree. I have been saying this day one since they have been doing this bullshit. And it's too much. It's getting to be way too much. That it really made me angry while I was watching this episode, even though, again, a lot of stuff in this episode was really, really good, and the episode overall was good.
Now we're going to talk about why this episode is good, and I kind of wanted to ask you going into that. I think this is the best episode of the season so far. Would you say that?
Probably. It's either this or Asylum of the Daleks, I would say. Were my two favorites for...
And I liked Asylum of the Daleks a lot, too, but Asylum of the Daleks also, to me, had more threads that went just nowhere, like
That's
Amy and
true.
Rory. Like, this episode, apart from the Doctor Who puns, everything that happened in it felt like it had a certain weight within the episode. Like, Madame Vostra and her investigative gang, they did stuff and they were important and they were fun to watch. Whereas Amy and Rory were a total and complete afterthought to Asylum with the Daleks. And they shouldn't have been because that was the first episode of their final stretch.
Yeah.
But,
I guess what I should say is that this episode, The Snowmen, is probably a better episode. Asylum of the Daleks did not make me as angry.
Okay.
Because there's stuff in this episode that made me angry.
Although the entire conclusion to Asylum with the Daleks is built just so they can make a pun.
Yeah, but, at least they weren't just, seeding the pun throughout the entire episode.
Okay.
So it's most of the episode you could enjoy.
All right. Well, we won't talk about that anymore until maybe the end of the podcast.
Yeah.
We'll get back to it. But in any
Doctor
case.
Who!
So, what did you like about this episode? We'll start general and then we'll go into different points.
I like Jenna Louise Coleman. I think
she's so good.
She's really, really good. And my favorite parts of the episode were the beginning parts of the episode where she's basically the main character, and it felt like it was the beginning to a new kind of chapter in the show. And I like that the whole that section of the episode. It almost had this cool Willy Wonka sort of feel where she's doesn't know who the Doctor is, and you're sort of looking from her perspective, trying to figure out who this crazy fucking dude is, and he's got the staircase that leads into the sky that's in the clouds and all that.
It's such a cool design.
Yeah, it had this really sort of fantastical Willy Wonka Dickens feel to it that I really loved.
I completely agree, and I think this is Russell T Davies tried doing this all the time, and I don't ever feel he did a great job of it, except with the possible exception of his first episode, Rose.
Yeah.
But he tried doing stuff like this a lot, where you would take the POV and put it in someone else to try to show how cool the Doctor is.
Yeah.
It really worked well here. Stephen Moffat did a really good job with it here. And a part of that is, again, Jenna Louise Coleman is really, really good. And I think, just as a piece of casting, that is brilliant.
Yeah.
And she and Matt Smith play off each other so well, and I'm so excited to see more of them together. It's just, there's a lot of good possibilities there. And, I think... Again, the main point, though, with me about the Snowman and how Jenna Louise Coleman makes this episode so good is that it goes back to what we were saying all through the first 5 episodes of Series 7, is that Amy and Rory were always good characters, but their arcs had kind of been completed by the end of Series 6, and there was really nowhere else you could take them, and what was holding those first 5 episodes of Series 7 back was Amy and Rory. And I hate to say that, because I love those characters.
Yeah.
They are historically great companions. We love those characters. And the actors are great, and I wish them all the best. They just didn't really belong on the show anymore. And it wasn't a horrible thing. It was just all right, it's time to move on.
Yeah.
And so the best episode of Series 7 so far had been Asylum of the Daleks, 90% because of Oswin.
Yeah.
And because of Jenna Louise Coleman, because that's a different dynamic. And not only does it make the show challenge and reinvent itself, it challenges Matt Smith to reinvent his performance and interpretation, and we see new dynamics in the Doctor and new dynamics in the storytelling. That's what the companions are for, from a narrative level.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's why the Snowmen, and I think Stephen Moffat understands that, even if he kept Amy and Rory around too long. I think he does clearly, from this episode and from Asylum with the Daleks, understand what the potential of having a new companion is.
Yeah, definitely what this episode did that it really needed to accomplish, and it did it well, is that it breathed some fresh life into the show,
yes.
Which is something that is really important to Doctor Who. It's something that's woven into the fabric of the show, the very nature of you have this rotating cast of companions, and then obviously the Doctor himself changes. It's the show had kind of gotten a little stale you could definitely see that for the first part of this season. So it's finally we've got a new companion. We're doing some new stuff. It's it definitely felt like this is a really refreshing direction for the show. That's we've got some new blood in there.
Right. And I know we've sounded kind of negative on the show recently, but you've got to keep in mind, in the grand scheme of things, Series 5 was great, Series 6 was great, it just had kind of a bad ending.
Yeah,
not even bad.
I thought it had a pretty awful ending.
Okay.
I think it really dropped the ball on sort of what the whole season was setting up with the Test Selecta thing, and the episode itself that it ended on was a mess.
Okay,
so.
I agree. But overall, it was a good season.
Yeah, overall, it was a good season. And
very good season.
The Doctor's wife in it. So
yeah. So great season there. And then, so we're just talking about Series 6 finale and first 5 episodes of Series 7. 2 of those 6 episodes which we really liked.
Yeah.
And And so it was sort of this very brief period overall that just got a little stale, and it was because of how they aired it. It felt longer, but it was just this really brief period. And so I think what you and I were looking for from the Snowmen was just talking about going in the right direction. Is just, can the show re-energize itself, or was this just a blip, or is this a trend? It was a blip, obviously.
Yeah.
Because now the trend is back sort of where I think I want Doctor Who to be, minus the puns, but, you know.
Yeah, but
overall, this is definitely, when I say it's getting in the right direction, that's what I'm talking about, is that it sort of, it doesn't, this episode did not feel stale. It felt very fresh.
I agree.
So, I guess we should just go further into that side of it then. So we've got, Jenna Louise Coleman is playing Clara in this episode, and this...
Is she Clara, or
Clara?
What do we know? What do we really know about her?
We'll talk about that in a minute. But we had previously obviously...
I think she's Voss from Far Cry 3. I just want to say that right now.
What?
It's going to all come around. It's going to all wrap up. It's insanity. Alice in Wonderland. You'll figure it out.
Okay.
Yeah.
Clara, we had previously
Voss.
met Jenna Louise Coleman in Asylum with the Daleks as Oswin. And one of this was actually kind of a treat, I think, is seeing sort of Jenna Louise Coleman playing two distinct characters, but who were similar, and kind of finding the ways they were, like, how this character type, this woman, existed in the 1800s versus the distant future.
Yeah.
There was some fun stuff there that, all right, how would she operate in the past? Well, she would do it by leading two separate lives, one as a barmaid and one as a governess. And it was like, that was a clever idea, and she played it really well. And like you said, just the early stuff establishing her character was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So... Now then she obviously meets the Doctor, she goes up into the heavens with him and in the TARDIS, and sort of, I guess from that middle section of the story, just concerning her, is there anything else we need to talk about before we kind of get to where her character goes?
Not really, I don't think so. It's sort of like mostly companion type stuff of, oh, I'm finding out who this guy is.
There is sort of, and it's all going to depend on how they follow this up. She does kiss the Doctor at one point.
Yeah, which I
didn't need.
Yeah, it's just like, it's become such a sort of... It's definitely during the David Tennant era, it like started becoming this weird thing with like the companions being like romantically involved. I mean, Rose is like the, oh God, don't do this sort of symbol of that.
Yeah.
And this isn't like terrible. It's just like, we don't need every single new companion to start kissing the Doctor.
No.
This is
pretty
annoying.
And honestly, they went in a very, very good direction with that with Amy. And so I suspect...
Yeah, they used it well as Amy, but it's like, they used it well with Amy. Like, you don't need to do it again.
I agree. And it, I don't, it doesn't look at all to me like they're going to make Matt Smith fall in love with Clara. That's not who the 11th Doctor has ever been. Mm-hmm. He's just, for one, he's too childish for romance.
Yeah.
You can see that with River. Mm-hmm. But in any case, that's a little thing. It's just a nitpick for now.
Yeah.
If it becomes something
it could become something awful. It probably won't, but sort of, I don't know. Keep it in mind, keep it on your radar. As
long as it doesn't become like in season 2 of the revived series where David Tennant's Doctor and Rose are talking about how they're going to go off and live the eternity together and all this like borderline Twilight bullshit.
Like, well, Rose, you're just going to be this small little blip on the course of my 1,000-year-long life. So it's like, fuck it, I'll go somewhere with you. You'll be dead in like the blink of an eye from my point of view. So fuck it. That's what the Doctor should have said, but... No, that is not how it ever goes.
No, but I do want to say I think we'll talk about the Doctor's side of this later on, but there's a lot of nice scenes in this middle section of the episode where the Doctor is sort of, his heart's being kind of warmed by Clara, and he's deciding, all right, maybe I will travel with this woman and show her some stuff because she seems like she's got what a companion needs. Mm-hmm. And just sort of some ideas, some nice little explorations into the idea of why the Doctor travels with people. And this is ground they've covered before, but there are just some nice scenes like where he gives her the key and says, I really never know why I do this, but I do know who. Mm-hmm. And that seems right.
Doctor Who.
Yeah, Doctor Who. But it does seem like that's very true, and it's very true to who he's always been with companions, is that some of the best companions are people he picks not for clear logical reasons, like he makes a pro and cons list. It's because
they are like a 20 to 30 age female from contemporary London. That's like the checklist he uses nowadays.
I know, but we'll talk about that later. But anyway, in the end of the episode, Clara dies, and she dies kind of a horrible death.
Yeah, and it's the saddest thing that ever happened.
It is because it defeats the Snowmen. That's how sad it is.
Yes, it's so sad. It killed the Snowmen.
Yes.
Which is fucking dumb.
It's really fucking dumb. I think we'll talk about that thread of the story later.
We'll elaborate on that point at a later date.
But so I guess this is the big question: is so Clara or Oswin or whatever we're going to figure out an overall name for this character eventually. But
I think it's Oswald.
Okay,
just because
Oswald.
it's the least fitting of her names. Let's call her Oswald. From now on.
So Oswald has died twice, and that's sad for her. And the Doctor...
It's the saddest thing ever.
Yes. And the Doctor is very obviously curious about this, and it's sort of kicked him back into action, and he's going to find out who this woman is, and that's sort of our setup for the next half of the season. How did you feel sort of how this all resolved and we're getting for this character in the future?
I'm getting kind of annoyed that the companions have, like, this thing. Like, it almost feels like, you know, you had this huge thing with River Song and River Song being like, oh, we're meeting each other in, like, reverse order and that whole thing. And it's like, then with Amy was such a huge part of that section of the show. It was like she was so vitally important. It was like the whole, you know, the girl who waited thing. And then now it's like, I just don't need a companion with, like, this weird, like, gimmick storyline thing attached to her where she's dying over and over, or, like, who knows what they're going to do with this. Like, the dumbest direction they could take it is that she dies at the end of every single episode, like some weird sort of Doctor Who Kinney. But, you know, that's what it means. You know, it's
you
really,
killed Clara, you bastards!
But it's particularly weird because, you know, everyone was already making the jokes about how Rory died all the time, and, like, that just popped up because different writers used that plot point sort of, like, coincidentally in episodes throughout season 5. And then it's like Stephen Moffat obviously became very conscious of that because he wrote a bunch of jokes about it that were, some of them were kind of funny, some of them kind of pushed the maybe kind of breaking the fourth wall point. But, you know, we kind of did this with Rory in a really dumb, accidental way that they then sort of kind of ran with. And then now it's like this whole, like, it felt like Stephen Moffat saw what people were saying about the Rory dying in every episode joke kind of stuff, and it was like, fuck it, I'll just make a new companion. That is that. She dies all the time. And I just don't know. It's like, it feels like Stephen Moffat keeps on trying to one-up himself with kind of trying to come up with crazy storyline gimmicks that's like, can it just have a fucking companion that is not a, like, you know, 18 to 30-year-old female from contemporary London and also is not some sort of crazy word time death thing. Like, can it just have a fucking companion, please? Is what I'm sort of asking for at this point. It's like, it may work out okay. Like, again, this is like just one episode we're seeing with this sort of like setting up some weird plot thing. Maybe it would be really important.
Here's what I'll say. I definitely think this could be great, depending on how they do it. They could do really good stuff with this, but they could also do bad stuff. Like, there's no way to do it well if she dies in every episode, which I don't think is what they're going to do. But if it becomes...
But, man, dude, if they are dumb enough to stick with the Doctor Who thing, man, anything could happen.
Anything could happen.
Anything could happen.
Anything could happen. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt on this one because I liked her character very much in both of the episodes she's been in.
I will agree with that.
And I think if it just becomes he meets the sort of actual Oswald we're going to be traveling with, and it turns out she just has this sort of weird past kind of thing, and it's just part of her story, I'm okay with that, especially if there's something interesting going on there and it's fun and it gives the episode sort of a thematic or narrative unity. That could be good. But I agree they could go too far with it, and I don't want them to go too far with it because, again, Jenna Louise Coleman, really good. And
she's really good.
She and Matt Smith are really good together, and it's a very different dynamic for Matt Smith to play opposite her than he played opposite Karen Gillan. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I don't want the narrative to overwhelm their relationship.
Yeah.
Which is, that's kind of what happened to Donna in Series 4 of Doctor Who, is that Donna was probably the best companion. She was easily the best companion David Tennant ever had.
Yeah.
And yet in Series 4, she hardly ever got any attention because there was always other narrative stuff going on that put Donna in the background.
Yeah.
And I don't want that. That was too bad.
Yeah.
So I want Clara to have more of a chance than that.
But here's kind of one of the weird things, particularly with, like, introducing Oswald and, like, having this sort of, like, crazy thing with how they're using her in these episodes, is that, you know, this season, Stephen Moffat was saying when the season started, you know, there are no two-parters, we're just doing a bunch of different one-off episodes, which is like, and I was like, okay, yeah, no, I'm cool with that. Doctor Who the best episodes tend to be the one-off episodes. It's like, we're going to take a break from the plot stuff, and it's like, But it's like, you're setting up, like, you've already got plot stuff hanging on from Season 5 that's sort of just, like, the silence thing has still been going on. Then at the end of Season 6, you introduce this whole Doctor Who thing.
Well, and they resolved absolutely nothing from Season 6.
Yeah, and then halfway through Season 7, now you're introduced this new companion that has this huge plot thing on her. That is like, I have died twice, and you see there is another me at the end of this episode that is still alive looking at my own grave. Like, that is a big thing we need now to address, on top of all the other big things we need now to address, that I thought they were trying to get away from by doing one-off episodes. It's like, it feels like Stephen Moffat's trying to fight himself, and he can't quite do it with all the crazy shit he tries to do with these shows.
I agree, and we'll see. I would have been filled with much more confidence, and this is one of my major complaints about the episode, is I wish it went like one scene beyond where it ends, and we just got some level of resolution, like, who is the Clara we will be traveling with? Like, if the Doctor, at the end of the Snowmen, went and met this woman, and just something. And who knows, maybe they did it this way because all of this plot stuff we're curious about, maybe that's just the next episode. And then from there, she's just a companion.
Like, that is the best case scenario as far as I'm concerned. That's what I really want.
And if they needed to lay groundwork for that episode in these two, that's fine. Sometimes you need to do that. And there's nothing wrong with that. So we will see. And I feel like that is an encouraging thought, because maybe that is why they had to do it this way, is whatever the story is for her real introduction, it needed something else. Mm-hmm. And we'll see. At the very least, we'll have another 8 episodes with this actress in it, and she's good, and that part of the show is solid. Mm-hmm. So, there we go. I want to go back and talk about the Doctor's arc in this episode. So, Matt Smith, we can get this out of the way, fantastic as always?
Yes.
Yeah, he's always
Matt Smith, yes.
And if anything, he gets better with every passing episode, but we've talked about that before. He's just great. And anyway, but where the Doctor starts this episode is he's basically retired from being the Doctor as a sort of hero. He's sort of observing Earth, but he's sort of just hanging out in the TARDIS. Assumedly, he's fucking with the design and things like that. Yeah. Making new title sequences, all sorts of stuff.
Bringing back the face in the opening titles. That was a good throwback there.
Yeah, let's stop for a second before we get too deep into this and talk about some of those elements. What did you think of the new opening credits?
I thought they were cool.
They were cool.
Like, they had the face there. It's like, fuck yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The welcome return of the weird opening titles face that started, I think, they started like in the second season of the show, like, William Hartnell. No idea why they decided to do that. It's like they just kept on with it. It's like, it's not as good as it was with Sylvester McCoy, where they do the weird fade where he like winks to the camera and then smiles, and like that weird
But Matt Smith could do that if he wanted to.
I kind of was hoping that they would keep that they would because they had kind of done a thing in that era of the show with like the 5th, 6th, and 7th Doctor, where they would have like 2 frames. It's like it was a normal frame, then the next frame would be him smiling. They sort of one-upped it with Sylvester McCoy, where it's like one frame of just his normal face, then the frame of him winking, and then the frame of him smiling. I was hoping they would do like another, it's like he winks, he smiles, and then he like sticks out his tongue, and that would be like Matt Smith's. And like you get the next Doctor, you like add another frame onto that, and you just keep on going for every Doctor afterwards. Hopefully that's what they'll do next time, is they'll like try to one-up the opening credit face. Pick up where Sylvester McCoy left off.
I like these opening credits, and it was definitely fun to see, for the first time in the modern series, them getting away from the time tunnel design. Yeah. Which a lot of Doctor Who fans today probably assume that's just what they always did for the theme song. That was totally new.
Theme songs, the opening credits stuff has always just been kind of like weird, vague, like moving shapes, really, and the really old stuff. The time tunnel thing was like the 3rd and 4th Doctor era, and then like the 5th, 6th, and 7th, they had like just like stars and like...
Right. And those were my favorite theme songs.
Yeah.
And so this was...
like techno and awesome.
Yeah, and this was like the high-tech modern version of that, so I liked it. And,
I agree.
And, they got kind of it's a little cheesy, but it's good Doctor Who cheesy, where the doors of the TARDIS open into the episode. Yeah. That's kind of fun. Mm-hmm. And, again, Matt Smith's face is good. I thought it was interesting how they rearranged the theme song this time, because it's mostly what it had been for the Stephen Moffat run, but they just added a bunch of drums into it. And it's kind of funny, because that's what Murray Gold did for Series 4 of Doctor Who, where they revamped the title, the visuals a little bit, and they redid the song, and all they did is just took the previous arrangement and put a bunch of drums in it. And it's kind of distracting, because you can tell the drums were just overlaid. Yeah. And so... it's not bad by any means. I just don't know if I love it. But I do like the visuals are very good. it's a weird time to switch it in the middle of the season.
Yeah, especially because they had been doing that weird thing for the first half of Series 7 where it was like each time it was like there was like a weird filter over the opening credits and like the text would have like a weird like this is like this metal one because they're doing like a Dalek thing or whatever. It's like, I guess they were just like, we're going to have different opening credits halfway through, so it's like, let's just fuck around with the one we have already until we get to that.
Yeah.
That's kind of what it ended up feeling like.
In any case, they're good. So, but back to talking about the Doctor, who finally has his face in the opening. Good for him. He's made it, as far as I'm concerned. No, but he's very depressed after everything that happened. Did you like that as a character decision for this episode?
I thought it was sort of an acceptable evil. It's one of the sort of the hard things with doing, like, continuing a show that's been going on for as long as it has been, since, like, 1963, is that it does seem a little bit ridiculous that he's, like, so... It's the same as kind of the Rose problem. It's better done here because I like Amy and Rory so much more, but it's still sort of that same thing where it's like, why is this one the one you can't take? It's like, you've had so many fantastic people with you, it's like,
But I did like... They at least referenced that a couple times by mentioning that it was not just Amy and Rory, it was the cumulative impact of it all for him. And that, to me, because Matt Smith's Doctor, part of his interpretation has always been sort of showing the age behind the youthful face, it worked for me because it definitely, you felt throughout the episode that it was not just Amy and Rory, but it was that was sort of a place he knew he had gotten too attached and he wanted to stop getting attached because he knew.
I guess, but sort of the problem with that is that it feels way too easy how he comes out of it for that. That's why it didn't necessarily, like, that feels like that would be like a season long chunk of stuff trying to get over. If it's like I have finally been crushed by all the shit that has gone on for my 1,000-long-year life. It's like it feels way too easy for that to go over in one episode, so it didn't necessarily really feel like that to me. It felt like sort of a rosy, like, oh, I'm really sad because Amy's gone now, and she was really cute.
I kind of agree. I think it was, but for what it is, I think it was
it's not terrible, but it's like, it's just by the very nature of them trying to do it like this, it's hard to do.
That's what I was going to say, is I think this was as good as they could do it,
Yeah.
given how long the show's been around.
Yeah, but it's like, but if you wanted to tackle that issue with the Doctor's character, that's a big thing you'd have to tackle. So.
But that being said, that issue, why I really like what they did with it, is because it opens up all these other fun avenues within the episode.
Yeah.
Like, that's how Clara is able to, really discover him as the Willy Wonka kind of figure. Mm-hmm. And so, it enables that, and it most especially enables all the stuff with Madame Vostra and the Investigative League. Yeah. And that they've kind of, for their little chunk of time in 1800s London, they've become the Doctor Squad.
Yeah.
And they're doing all the day saving, and they're pretty good at it. They're kind of funny.
Yeah.
So, in any case, Matt Smith's really good throughout this, and especially once Clara and him start interacting, there's a lot of really good material. He wears some cool outfits in this episode, too, and I don't know, I wouldn't usually talk about that, but this Doctor has always had a good flair for style, and I especially like whenever he's in the 1800s. For some reason, this Doctor looks cool, and they had some good styles in this one.
Yeah, I do like how he's got like sort of the same basic fundamental look, but he does move through different clothes like some of the older Doctors used to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
And there's a great moment in the middle of the episode where he's in the house, and a lot of bad shit is going on, so he should probably be paying attention, but he's not, because he sees himself in the mirror, and he's like, oh, I didn't know I put that on, and he has the bow tie, and Clara says something like, it's getting cool in here, and he says, they are cool, aren't they? And that little moment, that's a really nice scene.
Yeah, that's like, cheesy in Doctor Who done well.
Yeah.
It's a really cheesy thing to do.
But Doctor Who can be cheesy. I mean, it's...
Yeah.
Watch an episode with the original, like, Daleks. Things like that.
Dude, the original Daleks are fucking scary. They'll fuck you up. Don't you make fun of them.
I wasn't making fun of them. I'm sorry. In any case, so what else with the Doctor? I think he's at an interesting place by the end of the episode. I always like enthusiastic Matt Smith off to another adventure.
Yeah, sort of like the end of Good Man Goes to War.
Yeah.
What it felt like is like, I've got something to do. Hopefully it's not like, let's kill Hitler. It's like, I didn't really do anything. I just went out for the TARDIS.
I am a little worried about that the next episode could start and he'll land in a field again and he'll just come out and he'll be like, God, I really have not found Clara. This sucks. And then like Clara just walks up to him and she's like, where'd that blue box come from?
Let's kill Hitler. Doctor Who! And that's how the opening of the next episode goes.
And then you kill yourself.
Yeah, exactly. That's yeah.
That's your worst nightmare?
Yeah.
All right. Another scene I really liked with Clara, which was it was kind of cheesy and referential to the show, but it was diegetically referential, and so it worked for me, is that she comes in and she sees the TARDIS for the first time, and it's a new TARDIS, and it's awesome, and we will talk about that in greater depth, because I feel there's a lot to say. But she comes in, she sees it, and she goes back out and everything, and the doctor's like, I know what you're going to say, and she says, it's smaller on the outside. Yeah. That was a really nice joke.
I like that. I like how they keep, like, that has been going fresh for so long in Doctor Who, where it's like, how do we do this, the new thing where the companion tries to feel like, how do we introduce the companion to the concept of the TARDIS being bigger on the outside, and how do we make it different from what it was before? Yeah, that was a new one.
And it's it's awesome, and it's a cool shorthand for how Clara is different than people he's maybe traveled with recently.
Yeah.
Is that she just looks at the world differently, and it's really cool. Like, it feels like to me they're setting her up as sort of his first genius companion of the modern era.
Yeah.
Because he's always traveled with relatively normal people, but
she's... Yeah, 18 to 20-year-old, or 18 to 30-year-old London contemporary females.
Right. Who are very good people, and they're pretty sharp and everything, but, like, this woman is even smarter than those women.
Yeah.
I mean, Oswin was a genius, we saw.
Yeah.
Clara, for the 1800s, you can't be a technological genius, but she's in different ways.
Yeah.
So, it's cool. So, other sets of characters to talk about? I fucking love this episode just for Madame Vostra and her lesbian wife, and for Strax.
Yes, the Sontaran.
God, Strax is fucking funny.
Yeah.
And that Sontaran, whoever that actor is who plays Strax, and maybe he played the Sontaran leader in the Russell T Davies era one too. He very well could have.
Yeah, it could be any Sontaran actor from the new series could be playing him.
But isn't he great?
Yeah,
I love Strax.
I've always been really fond of the Sontarans as sort of like one of the stable of Doctor Who aliens, and
I love them too.
I like them bringing them back in really new, interesting ways.
Oh yeah, I mean, Strax was an interesting concept just in his brief scene in Good Man Goes to War as a Sontaran who still has all his Sontaran instincts, but has become basically just a good person and a good Samaritan. And here they got to play even more with it, and they played with it really effectively. I mean, I just love all the moments where he's meaning well, he's a nice guy, but he'll talk about destroying your entire species.
Yeah.
The best thing was his whole thing, like, we need to destroy the moon. Or, no, that was in one of the prologues. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
This episode had two, they always do the prologue things now. These were the best prologues they've ever done, I thought. They were really funny. And there's two of them, and in the first one, he's trying to convince the Doctor they need to destroy the moon. So I get them all mixed up, because I watched them all at once. But he had a lot of good stuff. The whole thing with the memory worm, that was a very funny little comic set piece.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
yeah,
the memory worm, that was like... Stephen Moffat was channeling his inner Douglas Adams for that.
Yeah. It also was kind of, because you know how they use it later on in the plot where they erase the one dude's memory. I was like, that's a pretty harsh thing to do, Doctor. I mean, Jesus. I mean, a while, it wasn't too long ago that you shot a cripple out of an airlock and blew him up, but, this is still pretty fucked up. It's not that fucked up, but this is still a pretty fucked up thing to do to someone, is to, like, erase their entire memory.
Yeah, that was kind of fucked up, but also if he didn't, he had to do it to get rid of the Snowmen, but not really.
He just had to get really fucking sad.
He did.
He should have just played Persona 4 and got to the really sad part in that. It's like, Snowmen would have been done. Done. I would have killed those fucking Snowmen if they had existed when I was playing that game. That's how sad that game is, and that's how dumb the Snowmen are, that they can be defeated like that.
Well, anyway, Strax is awesome. I also think Madame Vostra is an interesting character, and I just think it's such a wacky and funny dynamic that there's a reptile-human-lesbian marriage in the 1800s, and they get...
Yeah, they're like these like underground detectives.
It's awesome!
Yeah, it's the weirdest fucking idea I think I've ever seen on this show, which is, that's a fucking accomplishment. But it is hard to... Yeah, but because there's just so much stacked on top of it that it kind of has to work.
Yeah, and honestly, I saw some people make this joke on Twitter and stuff. I'm serious, that would be a fun spin-off series.
Yeah, maybe for like a season or two.
Right.
That could wear out pretty quickly. It would be a better spin-off than Torchwood.
Yeah. I mean like a couple episodes a year at most, like Sherlock style. Not 90-minute episodes maybe, but something. or even like a mini episodes online.
Yeah.
Just see what they're up to, because it is
agree.
fun. And there's also something, as weird as it sounds, there's something kind of sweet about the reptile lady's romance with the, like, 1800s woman.
Yeah, her, like, 1800s lesbian butler lady kind of... Like,
you have to wonder how that started. Like,
yeah, I know. It's just, like... It's weird enough that there is a Silurian there. Like, I have no fucking clue how a Silurian got there. But it's like, the Silurian got there and started this lesbian relationship with a butler lady from the 1800s. Like,
oh, they said how she got there in the episode.
did they?
Yeah,
How?
she said she was she was in a pod, and while humanity was drilling, they hit her pod and woke her, and she...
Oh, so she got there the exact same way the Silurians have always been introduced into the show.
Yes.
I guess I could have.
Yes.
But why was she alone in one... Like, usually it's a whole fucking gaggle of Silurians that then end up killing themselves. And it's like, this is the 5th time we've committed genocide on the species. But, yeah.
I like the enhanced focus on the Silurians in Modern Who. They're good.
I like the Silurians, too.
Around. It's like, I like some of those smaller, like, the not as prominent alien races in Doctor Who, like the Silurians and the Sontarans.
Yeah.
They're good.
It's good to not have, like, a Dalek episode every single time. Yeah.
So how does reptile-human lesbian sex work? And when will someone make a porno of that?
Jonathan, I could draw some diagrams for you, but that is not to be done on the podcast.
Okay.
I don't, yeah. That is not information the world needs to know.
Okay. All right, so I think finally we can talk about maybe the most, to me at least, underwhelming aspect of the episode behind the puns, which is the sort of the main plot of the episode with the actual snowman.
Yeah.
It's an interesting idea, and none of it's bad, except maybe the tears.
Except for the resolution, yeah.
But it's certainly not. It's just sort of there to allow the other elements of the episode to come into focus.
Yeah.
It's just a good sort of adventure to bring people together. It's not, genius or anything.
Yeah, it has this weird sort of attachment that I don't even know how or why or if it even really fits, but they do the whole great intelligence thing, which is vaguely attached to a really fucking old lost Patrick Troughton stories that the Snowmen, or no, not the Snowmen, the Yeti, and another one, I can't remember what that one is. It's no idea, that was just a weird, okay, I guess that's kind of similar? I don't know. That was kind of a weird sort of throwback, but the whole thing I thought it was an interesting idea that this sort of alien life form or whatever they are comes in the form of snow that lands on the planet.
It's another good Stephen Moffat idea of mundane things being scary.
Yeah, and that it reacts to the emotions of the people around them, only notably that one dude. And that's a really interesting idea that could actually be really properly a really good idea for a full episode, that it's with a decent resolution instead of we kill them with sadness.
Yeah, so let's just talk about that. The ending is that eventually, it's interesting because it seems like the episode is building up to a more complex resolution. Something specifically about Clara is going to defeat these people, but it has nothing to do with Clara except that people are sad about her dying, and none of them really know her, which is kind of funny because she was been their governess for a day, and then the dad never knew her, as far as I know. Yeah. But they're all really sad, and their tears of unfathomable sadness killed the snowmen.
Yeah, it is the end of Pokemon, the first movie, only instead of saving a life, they end millions of lives, presuming each of those individual snowflakes is a sentient creature.
See, genocide version of Pokemon.
Yeah, exactly. That's Pokemon, the first movie. Yeah, it's dumb. It is really fucking... It is hard to stress just how dumb of a resolution... we don't even need to. Everybody listening to this podcast knows just hearing that is fucking dumb.
It was.
That you defeat the villain by being really sad because one person died. This is just dumb because that's just fucking dumb. But even it doesn't even make sense in the scope of the whole, they try to, be there's a heavy concentration of the snow at that house. That's that's why the sadness affects everything. But the snow has been around for 30 fucking years. Has nobody died in London up to that point? Nobody has been that sad?
Sean, I'll do you one better. It's not just stupid within the context of the episode. It's stupid within the context of basic good versus evil narrative construction, why do antagonists exist if not to make other people sad?
Yeah.
I mean,
it's like this weird sort of like self-defeating monster. It's like, I'm gonna fuck you people up, and if you get sad, I'm just gonna turn into water and die.
That would be like if Inglourious Bastards ended with Hitler just melting because Shoshana died.
Yeah. Just like, well, shit, I guess that's just how it works. You make people sad, you melt.
Yep.
Yeah.
It'd be a nice world to live in if that happened. No one would ever be sad.
No, that would be fucking terrifying. Jesus, dude. Imagine that. You're just sort of like driving around and it's like, you say you're just like some guy, you're driving around, you accidentally run over some poor girl's cat. Your ass is grass, motherfucker. Sorry that cat ran out into the middle of the road. It's a horrible event. You don't deserve to be melted because some girl's cat got killed.
Okay, I see the folly of my ways.
Yes. Don't go trying to create a world where people melt if they make other people sad, because that shit's fucked up.
It is. Is there anything else to say about this episode?
I think we kind of covered it pretty well.
I want to talk about sort of the aesthetics of it, because this is another gorgeous-looking Doctor Who episode.
Yeah.
And whatever our few issues with the sort of recent episodes have been, they've all been really well-produced.
Yeah.
And I want to know where they are getting to the money to make Doctor Who episodes this big.
No, you don't. You don't want to know. If you knew, they'd have to kill you.
Stephen Moffat is whoring himself every night for extra dough.
It's more sinister than that.
Okay.
It's more sinister than you could possibly imagine.
But it's just interesting because this is a show that when Stephen Moffat took over the series the first time, like in Series 5, they had big budget cuts, actually, for Doctor Who. And so if you remember, the CGI in early Moffat-era episodes are really bad. It doesn't ruin the episodes or anything. They're just not as good. And now it's like, these look like big Hollywood productions every week.
Yeah, no, and I think they kind of learned their lesson to try to stay away from the digital effects as much as possible. Like, the only notable one of this episode was the memory worm thing, which looked like shit, but it was only on screen for, like, a little bit. Yeah. So it was okay.
And I also want to say, Murray Gold's music in this episode, fantastic. And I don't know if we talked about it much during the first 5 episodes, but of the season. Murray Gold's music is always great. Yeah. And we always love it. He's one of the best composers on TV. But he always really brings it for the Christmas episodes. And this was, I think, some of his best work on the series to date. There is just some phenomenal music in this episode. And it's just very atmospheric. And it really enhances sort of the tone of the episode.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely Murray Gold is one of the key components of what makes modern Doctor Who what it is.
Oh,
and he knocks it out of the park every single time.
That's one of the saddest things to consider is that he'll have to leave the series one day just because either he'll die or he'll quit something. He will not be around forever. That's sad to consider. Like, I've always known, okay, Stephen Moffat's not going to be around forever. That's okay. There are other good people who can write Doctor Who. Are there other good people who can write Doctor Who music, though?
There are. There's always... That is the beauty of Doctor Who, is that there are always people to make Doctor Who.
Right. It's just Murray Gold, his particular niche on the show, he does so perfectly.
Yeah, that it is hard to imagine someone trying to take over that role.
It would have to be like when you get a new Doctor.
I agree. Yeah. I hope they have the foresight to do that when the time comes.
Right.
When Murray Gold feels he wants to leave the show, hopefully he will wait until it's an appropriate time.
Yes.
Yeah, but...
Or at the very least, if he leaves, just keep recycling old Murray Gold music until you can have a good point to...
See, there's enough of it.
There is.
Yeah, you definitely could.
God, how, in my iTunes library, how much Murray Gold music do I have?
Yeah, I have...
11.2 hours. And I think I have everything. They never put out a soundtrack for last year's Christmas special, but in any case... A lot of stuff.
Yeah, no, music is still awesome.
Yep. So, overall, good episode. Definitely going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. And whenever the show returns, we'll obviously do our week-by-week recaps.
Yeah.
And I'll say this, we will try to do in the future, and it'll be a while off because I don't know when the show is returning.
Yeah.
Whenever we talk about Doctor Who in the future, it'll be more like this episode of the podcast where the first half is something else anyone can listen to and the last half is for Doctor Who fans. Because we did get comments last time, not everyone watches Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Everyone should watch Doctor Who.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone does not. It's okay. We don't live in a perfect world. Sadness does not cause people to melt.
God. Jesus. That's just so terrifying.
I know.
That idea.
It could be as simple as like
that could be a Doctor Who episode. Is the Doctor landing on a planet or making someone else sad makes that person melt?
it'd be like the weird evangelist.
That would be great fun. That is what Stephen Moffat should write that episode. That would be a good episode for him.
Yeah, I'm imagining Sean like if we lived in that world every day, we like walk to school, like you walk up to CU Boulder, and you always get stopped. If correct me if I'm wrong, by evangelists who want.
Yes, just crazy fucking people who think the end times are coming. That has nothing to do with the Mayan calendar. Yes, that happened quite often last semester.
And they would always ask you, Sean, do you believe in God? And you'd say, no, I'm an atheist. They would melt, right? If you said that?
Yes.
You would just be melting evangelists everywhere.
So never mind. Let us bring that reality. Like, please let that happen so I can just fucking go to school like a normal person. I want to be melting evangelists all the fucking time.